Hey guys, welcome back to the beginner lesson series. In this video we are going to look at power chords. So we're going to really build on our fundamentals here. We'll look at a couple variations, but predominantly using one shape and using that power chord shape to learn some notes on the neck, in particular on strings 6 and 5, our low E and A. So first, let's just go over some open power chords that are very common. We'll talk about E5, A5, D5, and G5. So E5, A5, and D5, very simple to remember because they're set up the same way. We have string 6 open and string 5 fret 2. That's an E5 power chord. And then just shift that down towards the floor one set. We've got open string 5 and string 4 fret 2. That's an A5 power chord. And then again, shift that down towards the floor once more. We've got open string 4, D, and then string 3 fret 2. That's a D5 power chord. We'll get to G5 in a second because it's a little bit different, but I want to show you the 3-string versions of those. Pretty simple. We're basically just going to let the index finger press 2 strings down instead of 1. So for the E5, it's going to be open, 2, 2. And for the A5, same thing, string 5 open, and then string 4 and 3 on the second fret, open, 2, 2. And the D5 slightly altered. It's going to be open, string 4, and string 3 fret 2, and string 2 fret 3. Which will start looking like a D major chord there. So between the 2-string versions and the 3-string versions, there is a little bit of a difference in sound, right? The 3-string version is going to be a little bit fuller of a sound. Basically what we're doing is doubling the octave. But in most cases, you can use, it's kind of interchangeable, right? So that's an important thing to note, unless you're like arpeggiating the chords themselves and you need specific notes. So just a little bit of background on a power chord and why it's called a 5, like E5, A5, D5. So let's just take our E5 as a for instance. We've got open string 6, which is E, and we've got string 5 fret 2, which is B. So we've got E the root and B, which is the 5th. That's where that 5 comes from. E5, E and B, the root and the 5th combined. So you can put E and B together, however many times you want. It's still going to be an E5 power chord. What I mean by that is, I could double that root. It's still an E5 chord. I could throw another B in. It's still an E5 chord, right? I'm really just kind of making that sound a little bit bigger. Last open chord is G5 power chord, a little bit different from E, A, and D. So one version, I'm not saying these are the only versions, but these are the main ones, is string 6, fret 3, and I use my middle finger more often than not, is just going to naturally lay on top of string 5 and mute it, all right? So you want that 5th string muted, and you could play string, the reason you're muting is so you can strum straight through it, right? So you're not going to get that sound. So you could do 6 and 4. You could do 6, 4, 3. And another variation, just to show you how this can kind of expand here, is we can basically play like a full G chord, but if I'm going to use this fingering where I have 2 fingers on string 2 fret 3 and string 1 fret 3, so it almost looks like a full G chord, but here again I'm going to mute that 5th string. That's still a G5 power chord, and you'll see that pop up a lot. And the reason that's still a power chord is because we have G, which is the root, D, which is the 5th, G, the root again, D, the 5th again, and G, the root again. So we have 3 roots in there and 2 5ths. So still a power chord. All right, so great power chords to know, but like I said in the beginning, we're going to focus more on probably a shape that you've seen before. So I'm just going to pull up here to 5th position just to talk about that fingering and go over the 2-string and 3-string versions. So this is going to be a A5 power chord. Index finger is on string 6 fret 5, and finger 3, ring finger, is on string 5, fret 7. That is our most common power chord shape. Okay? 2 strings. Very easy to move around. It's kind of that middle ground between like a bigger chord and just a single note, right? We thicken that sound up a little bit, and works great with distortion. That's why we see a lot of songs, rock songs, using power chords and creating things that almost sound like single note riffs. Of course, left hand's a little bit more involved there rather than just playing single notes, but kind of functions the same way. All right, so if I want to make that a 3-string power chord, all I have to do is add finger 4, my pinky, on string 4, fret 7. So I've got 5, 7, 7. Okay? So there again, all we're doing is doubling the root. It's going to be a little bit fuller of a sound, but we're not changing the chord. Okay? So everything that we're going to use is, for the following examples, is going to be just 2 strings, fingers 1 and 3. And I'll also make a note, you'll see a lot of people play the 3-string version with like a finger 3 kind of hinge bar, or even a finger 4 hinge bar. Lots of different ways to play it. You'll find what works for you. I typically do 1 and 3 or 1, 3, 4. So personal preference there. One thing I do want to point out here is the way that my index finger is arranged on the neck. A lot of beginners have trouble with this, where the hand just gets a little tied up because we're tending to grab the string a little bit too much, and you'll see the index finger kind of curl and kind of do this, and it's just like pushing the wrist out, and the thumb is getting all wonky in the back. I have no flexibility or reach with these other fingers. You can see how my ring fingers are becoming super extended. So this is something to watch out for. Just kind of play around with your hand position, your arm position, that where that elbow is, relax shoulder, bring the elbow in. It almost seems like an inevitability for beginners that this is going to happen, and they're like, well, I can't make that shape happen. It's 2 fingers. You just got to figure out how to feel comfort, feel relaxed, right? You should not feel like you're overworking, especially with 2 fingers on the guitar like this, right? So make it feel comfortable. So I'm letting that index finger lay down. The added benefit of that is I start working on muting, right? So if I strum across all 6 strings here, all the other 4 strings are muted. I've got strings 6 and 5 ringing out. So I can actually get a bigger sound with that muted rake added in if I want to utilize that. But aside from that, just the comfort of having that index finger lay down is huge. And it's just going to allow you to move a lot easier. So I just wanted to point that out. Okay, so what we're going to do is just go through our basically musical alphabet on string 6 and string 5. Okay, and I'll make little notes along the way, but we're just going to do it with single notes here first. We'll do the first example with string 6, just string 6 by itself, and then I'll do it with power chords. And then we'll just do it with power chords on strings 5 and 4. All right, so string 6 open is E. So we're just going to walk all the way up 1 fret at a time to the double dots, all right, the 12th fret, which is going to be the octave. So we're going from low E to high E. And that will take us through the full alphabet. Basically, we have our guitar starting over there. So string 6 open, E, fret 1, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, and back down, D sharp, D, C sharp, C, B, A sharp, A, G sharp, G, F sharp, F, and E. Now you could also do that, you can do it a number of ways, but just to make a point of using flats. Flats tend to confuse people a little bit more than sharps. So you start with sharps if you don't know that information already. So if I go back to the 12th fret and work my way down, you can do it up and down. It doesn't have to be flats or sharps going either direction. just to start incorporating flat. So we have E, E flat instead of D sharp, D, D flat instead of C sharp, and they're the same sound, right? Different name for the same sound. C, B, B flat, A flat, G, G flat, F, E. So these chord names, the power chord names, are going to be exactly the same as those notes. That's why it's very important to memorize those root notes. All right, so just like we said, the first chord we're going to encounter on string 6 and 5 is an E5 chord, string 6 open and string 5 fret 2. That's that open power chord. Now, once we shift up from there along those strings, we're going to end up with that power chord shape I was talking about. All right, so if I move up the neck, I'm just keeping that shape the same all the way through. Just to illustrate, if I keep moving back here, this finger falls off of string 6, so I've got open string 6 and string 5 fret 2, but I'm not going to use that finger, right? So just to show that this and this are the same shape. So E5, F5, F sharp 5, G5, G sharp 5, A5, A sharp 5, B5, C5, C sharp 5, D5, D sharp 5, E5, and now I'm just going to do it with flats going down, E5, E flat 5, D5, D flat 5, C5, B5, B flat 5, A5, A flat 5, G5, G flat 5, F5, and E5. Okay, now, how are we going to memorize that? It's great to know how that alphabet works up and down like that in half steps, but it can be hard to internalize specific positions. So this is what I recommend doing. Learn E5, so that's back down in open position. A5, and that's at the 5th fret, and then at the 12th fret, E5. So now you've got E and E kind of enclosing that neck from open to the 12th fret, and A5. So if you need to find, let's say, C5, then you go, well, I know where A5 is, and I'll just work my way up, A sharp, B, C, or where is D5? Well, I know that E5 is up here, E flat, D. So now you're giving yourself something to hold on to that's a lot easier to remember, and then you're building on it, right? Instead of having to go like, where's C5? Having to climb all that way up, and it will just, it'll evolve from there, right? So you're giving yourself a nice starting point. Now, another way to do it is not even worry about the sharps and just do the natural notes. E5, F5, G5, A5, B5, C5, D5, and E5. Alright, so that was root on open, root on 1, 3, 5, 7, 8, 10, and 12. So you got a few different ways of picking that apart. And then, of course, the way that it's really going to start sticking is when you spend some time with a song and make sure you know those chords, right? Don't just look at tab and follow the tab, because that's how people find themselves playing something for an extended period of time and then looking back like, well, I don't really know that I learned anything, right? I hear that a lot from students, and I know how it can be. It's a lot to take in, so this is just giving you a method of approaching learning the same material, probably a little bit quicker, but also getting some other knowledge in the process. All right, and let's go to strings 5 and 4. We've got A5, so string 5 open, and string 4 fret 2, and then here again, now we're going to move into a closed position. A sharp 5, B5, C5, C sharp 5, D5, D sharp 5, E5, F5, F sharp 5, G5, G sharp 5, and A5 at the octave, right? Knowing that that 12th fret is the octave is key. That, like I said, gives you those kind of boundaries to work with. And then going down with flats, A5, A flat 5, G5, G flat 5, F5, E5, E flat 5, D5, D flat 5, C5, B5, B flat 5, and A5. So use the same process here. We've got A5 in open position. We've got A5 again at the octave. And then at the 5th fret we have D5. So those are kind of like your signposts, right? A5, A5, and D5. Now you have 3 positions and 3 notes that you're familiar with, or chords that you're familiar with, to navigate to find the others. Last thing, we'll just go through the string set 5 and 4 with just our natural A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. A5, B5, C5, D5, E5, F5, G5, A5, G, F, E, D, C, B, and A. So that was open, 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 10, 12. Now, very quickly, you're going to start finding that some of these chords are repeating, right? I've got B5 and B5, C5 and C5, D5, D5, so on and so forth. So, is there a difference between that? A slight difference in sound because of the gauge of the string, right? Sometimes if it's thicker, it's going to be a little bit lower sounding, a little bit darker, and if it's a thinner gauge, then it's going to be a little bit higher sounding. It's a slight difference, but what you're going to, the reason to use one versus the other is the comfortability, right? If you can play it really smoothly with one particular chord versus another, then you have your answer on which direction to go. A lot of songs that use power chords, you could play it a number of ways, and that goes for pretty much just about anything on guitar. The neck is versatile in that regard. There's many ways of playing things. That's why you see 3 different guitarists play the same song, but it doesn't look the same. We can find these chords all over. So, little primer on power chords. The follow-up video is going to be 5 power chord riffs that progressively get more difficult. There's nothing too crazy going on with them, but they're easy to have fun with. They're short, probably recognizable to most of you, and if not, you just listen to the song, right? And gets you good workout on the left hand with power chords and just moving around with different rhythms. So, see you in the next video. Thanks.